Welcome to the Move the Stairs podcast. This is episode 91. We are recording on Monday, September 18th, 2023. We're happy you're here to join us for today's exciting conversation.
We are excited to be joined by Stefanie Reiser. She's the founder and CEO of Acknowledgment Farms to talk about her regenerative farm and how that branding helps tell a unique story.
You know, we're also going to talk to Stefanie about customer loyalty, as we do in every podcast, and how her regenerative farm really makes a difference for her.
And in our Insider Media Relations segment, we're going to talk about how she believes understanding your targeted media's audience can move your brand forward.
And Stefanie also has an extensive background in government as a self-described policy wonk who worked along Capitol Hill with the governor of California and as the head of the new Maryland hemp organization, and sits on the Maryland Ag Commission, which she sees coming up the next 3 to 6 months, what she expects to see here in the next 3 to 6 months during our Building a Resilient CBD brand segment. So without further ado, we'll get started and bring Stefanie into the studio. Good morning, Stefanie. Thank you for joining us today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Can you tell us a little bit more about you, your background, how you got started, how you came to be with Acknowledgment Farms?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. I've been in the Washington, D.C. area. I think that's important to locate us for over 30 years now. But I got started with Acknowledge as sort of the next entrepreneurial journey when we purchased a farm in Maryland, only a little bit more than an hour away from DC. So that's what really got me onto launching the farm as a business. And that's what brought me here today.
There you go. Like that, farming and Congress. You got them both covered there. You're in good shape.
Exactly.
Well, we know one of the big challenges we hear all the time from CBD companies is the field's so crowded. I'm trying to make myself stand out, let the consumer know I'm there, and build that loyalty from customers. You made a point to tell the story of how your hemp farm is a regenerative farm. So tell us a bit more about that story, why that's important.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Because that's really where the brand story starts, was the purchase of the farm. And from the very get-go, what we needed to do was bring that farm back to life. It had not been farmed actively for over 20 years, but it was a really historic property in that community. So we knew from the get-go that we were going to be organic and really employ the most modern and updated environmentally conscious methodologies to our farm before we knew exactly where we were going to land on the brand and any of the crops coming out of the farm. So we knew we wanted to be regenerative organic certified. And when we started looking at hemp and the opportunity that hemp was presenting in the marketplace, we knew that that was a great marriage for the environmental concerns that we had to bring to our farm, as well as what the market was asking for.
You know, Stefanie, I'd love for you to define the word regenerative. What does that mean? In fact, it's hard to say, to be real honest.
Yeah, 100%. So everybody kind of knows where organic is, but I think that also people understand that in some respects that term has gotten diluted, as well as the fact that we've just grown beyond that. Regenerative organic agriculture, which is where we are certified at the silver level, is that next level of farming. So it's really understanding the health of your soil and focusing on soil health and doing it in a manner that mimics Mother Nature and tries to recreate those natural systems that you find in a healthy ecosystem and recreate them on the farm. So we're really focused on healthy soil as a living component and making sure we're feeding all of the health in that soil. And then that translates to the next level for our plants.
That's really interesting. So do you think that telling that story about the regenerative farm can help you build customer loyalty, can really give you an edge, can have people really feel like they're doing something special on top of the fact that they're buying CBD?
100%. We 100% believe that, because we believe that the best products and the best plants come from the healthiest plants, and they come from the healthiest environment. And that's what we're doing. We're building that environment. And this is not a, one time, one shot, implement one practice and you're better or you're done. This is something that's a constant improvement. Every year we're trying to go to the next level. So we're being advised by and graded by the Regenerative Organic Alliance when they come in and visit our farm every year. And we're constantly being pushed to adopt more methodologies. So those look like diversifying plant life, diversifying the crops that you're bringing, the insect and animal life. But the other part of regenerative organic farming is making sure that you're treating the community and your staff and your business in a holistic manner. So we're also considering all of that. So from our perspective, we know plants that are grown in soil, that are in the healthiest soil, are giving you the best possible outcome. And we know that that's what our customers are looking for. They're looking for that best product. And this isn't just our beliefs. This is now being borne out by more and more research. Columbia University just did a study comparing hydroponic cannabis to cannabis grown in living soil. And, of course, the living soil just confirmed our beliefs and blew it away in terms of the diversity of cannabinoids in the plant, the amount of cannabinoids in the plant, as well as the diversity and amount of terpenes in the plant.
Oh.
It sounds like you really do. You encompass that regenerative word. I love how you explain that. It's not just in the hemp that you're growing, but also in the culture that you've instilled at Acknowledged Farms with your employees. I'm wondering what other, targeted tactics are you using to keep consumers coming back? The regenerative farm is kind of like the umbrella shield. That's what people know you for. Can you provide any really specific kind of targeted methods that you're using to say, hey, you know who we are? We're that regenerative farm, but also we're doing A, B, C, and D as well.
Well, we're really focused on building community. And I think we're not necessarily, we're not creating anything groundbreaking in terms of the way we're doing it, but we're using social media, we're using events, we're getting out into the community. So there's, all the things that you would normally employ to build that community. But we're also very passionate about education. We're passionate about advocacy. Like what we're doing, we understand that this is different. And it's going to take a lot of communication with our neighbors, within our community, with other farmers to understand why we're doing this. Why are we taking a different way of doing our business to convince them to also employ those methodologies? So we're really developing a lot of educational, and we're investing a lot of time into that and into advocacy to make sure we're bringing the community in multiple ways.
I love that holistic approach. It's really wide ranging, and I can see how that would absolutely build customer loyalty, as well as the fact that when you were talking about the soil and how the plants are delivering the product you want them to deliver and the experience you want them to deliver. We've seen so much research on that's one of the most important things that customers are looking for, is to have the same experience every time. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing. So that's fantastic. Stefanie, we're all journalists here at M&C Communications, and we're always very interested in talking about insider media relations and how you use the media to really get your story out there. What do you think is your best target media to reach out to?
I guess I'm not sure I would have one best. We're so new as a brand. We're still, getting feedback from our customers and learning all of that. But I think any outlet that is speaking to wellness and balance overall, that's definitely one of our targeted media outlets. Nature and beauty also overlays onto that, because we're talking not just about sort of your inner beauty, but the beauty of nature and why we need to value and treasure that. Media outlets that really focus on positive and intentional consumers, people who are looking for there to be an intention behind their brand, or they want to understand that the things that they're consuming on a daily basis are helping with the problem instead of adding to the problem. They want fixes. They want that holistic thing. And anybody who's talking to plant-based solutions. We can obviously dive down into the more nuanced things like agriculture specific or cosmetic or beauty specific, but it's really those holistic things that are the best places for our message.
Awesome. You know, if I'm a reporter and I'm doing a story and trying to find somebody in this realm, and it's a pretty crowded field. So I'm going to be looking for the one maybe I've built up a little relationship with, or I see is pretty active on social media, involved with the industry. But in your case, you've got another little, you check the box, and that's your political experience. How do you leverage that political experience when you're talking with reporters? How would you do that?
Well, I think that politics, it's people kind of say, well, the business community or the economic issues are over here and politics is something different, but it's a marketplace of ideas. So you're really bringing that same kind of approach in politics that you would in business. So I think that it just gives you an opportunity to speak with reporters in a way that you're being advocates about what you're talking about. I don't necessarily leverage my political background except for understanding how to be really a good advocate and talk about conceptual ideas and draw the distinctions or the connections between what somebody is talking about or thinking about or reporting on and why you need to be paying attention to it. So it's drawing those connections and doing so in a clear manner. That's good for advocacy. That's good for the media stuff as well.
Yeah.
Well, given where you live too, Stefanie, that's really important because so many reporters have that political mindset. So how you talk to them may be totally different than how you might talk to somebody, say at a conference that you go to, right?
Yes, 100%. I think, again, just bringing it back to whatever the reporter is working on so that you understand sort of where they're starting from and then making the connections for that.
You are also an artist, from what I understand, and one of the founders of the Nicholson Project, which is a paid artist residency program and neighborhood garden in Washington, D.C., which is really cool, by the way.
Thank you.
Have you ever considered your work in the art world could potentially be a unique angle to not only get a reporter's attention, but also intrigue potential customers to take a deeper look at Acknowledged Farm CBD?
Yes, I think so. But that, I would say that wasn't the point of starting the Nicholson Project.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the work I'm doing at the Nicholson Project is deep, targeted, transformational work at a local level with a lasting commitment to structural change and to make a real difference in a hyper-local area. And I think that translates very clearly to the approach I've taken at Acknowledged Farms, where we're doing deep, targeted, transformational work that's intended to make real structural changes in the way farming's done, in the way cannabis is grown, in the way it's presented and consumed and utilized by customers. So to me, even though they might look very different on the surface, it's really very much the same work. And the kind of work we're doing in the Nicholson Project, particularly with the garden that's there, again, a very holistic message about the importance of what you need in a community in order for it to be healthy, which has to be both, structural change as well as access to beauty, access to nature, access to healthy foods. So that underlines all of my work.
What I can tell you is, even though you may not be using that as a tactic for media coverage, as reporters are doing their vetting and they're looking you up online, they're seeing that you're involved in these types of things. So they're seeing that you have this regenerative umbrella surrounding your business, and they're seeing that you're talking the talk with your business and walking the walk, as yourself. So that is moving the needle, whether you know it or not.
Thank you.
That stands out. Yeah, that would stand out to a reporter for sure, to find someone that's knowledgeable like that. The businesses they always want to kind of prepare themselves for whatever, unknowns are around the corner. And there always are, especially in this industry, right? With so many things up in the air. And weather those storms. That's where we always help clients kind of build up their reputation. So when that storm hits, they're prepared. But also, sometimes it feels like a crisis, and we help them show them that sometimes that's also an opportunity to share about what's going on. So this is one of our favorite parts of the program, because we talk about building a resilient brand. And so with your experience on Capitol Hill, so this is the crystal ball time moment, right? What do you think is the likelihood that we see some movement on the CBD issue by the FDA?
Yeah, thanks. Well, I might know more or have some more insight at the end of this week. As you know, the U.S. Hemp Roundtable, you guys have been involved with that organization. I'm a member of that organization and some of their committee work. We're coming into Washington this week, and we'll be meeting with with different delegations on the House and the Senate side. And so we'll have a lot more up-to-date thing. I think that for most people to understand the process in DC, the ones as painfully slow as Congress can be, the agencies can also be equally slow or sometimes even more slow and more deliberative. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because we've designed these systems so that there is need for deliberation, there's need for engagement from all the different sources or all the different stakeholders around any given interest, so that then it kind of gets worked out, and no one side gets at all of it. So I don't think the FDA is going to move with a great deal of haste, even though we're pressuring them as an industry. They're getting pressure from lots of different points. They are still in that, like, bring it all in, absorb the information, kind of wade in and figure out where the good solution is. I think that's going to continue to be a very slow pace.
Okay.
Stefanie, I'd ask, what are your hopes for the new Farm Bill? And then, as a secondary question, do you think that we're going to see a bill this year, especially now that we have the suggested rescheduling of cannabis? Is that now going to throw a monkey wrench in how, what the timeline may look like for this legislation to be passed?
Thank you. From my perspective as a farmer, the number one thing I would like to see addressed in terms of the Farm Bill is the raising of that THC cap at the plant level to bring it up to 1%. We're really getting in the weeds on that, no pun intended, but that would give a lot of leverage to the farmers without really compromising any kind of health or safety for the community. So that's number one. In terms of prognostication for this fall, I do not know whether we will see a Farm Bill get completed this year. And I don't think that really has anything to deal with the cannabis side of things, with the declassification versus just what else is on Congress's plate. You've seen they've just come back from their August recess. We've got 2 weeks or something like that before potential shutdown, and a lot of politicking over, whether or not on the Republican side, on the House, whether or not they're going to let the speaker move forward in negotiations to get the budget passed, and, the indictment or the potential impeachment, rather, inquiry into the president. There's a lot going on here that, frankly, is taking way more of the headlines away than the Farm Bill. So I think it could easily slip.
It really does. It sucks all the oxygen out of the room when they come back from their recess and they have that last sprint till the end of the year. And when you have things like budget and all, yes, I agree completely. How about in Maryland, though? I mean, what do you think you could see? Any changes in the state of Maryland?
Oh, I'm sure there's going to be changes in Maryland. We just brought about the legalization, the REC program, this past session. So that was passed by a ballot initiative in the fall. Early this spring, our local legislature had to enact the laws around bringing legalization to Maryland. So that opened up the market in July. Of course, they've staggered who has licenses and when that's going to happen. So they understand that cannabis, this larger issue of cannabis, and where do you draw the line between different types of products and who has access through what mechanisms. These are things that these different legislatures are going to be working on for probably years, decades maybe, in terms of where do we actually fine tune all of this regulation. So 100% we're going to continue to see focus on this in the political realm in Maryland for the next session, and then after that and after that.
So Stefanie, I have one more question for you. What is it, when you're looking at the end of the year here, what's the one thing that you're preparing for at Acknowledge Farms that you think you should have all your ducks in a row just to make sure that your reputation is safe, that you're in a good place from a business standpoint with CBD? What's the one thing that you think that's on your mind between now and the end of the year?
For me, I'm just constantly focusing on the quality of those plants. So as a farmer, we're making sure we get the plants to harvest. That's only probably 3 to 4 weeks away for most of these plants, that we're doing it in a way that is adhering to all the regulations. So we want to absolutely make sure we're not running afoul of any of that, and that we're bringing the best and highest quality. So once those plants come out of the field, that we get them dried in the best of manner, and we get them to extraction just as quickly as possible. And that we're taking our care on those batch extractions to get the highest and best cannabinoid and terpene profile for our customers.
Well, and that kind of brings it all back around. This has been a great interview. Thank you so much, Stefanie. I really appreciate it. Stefanie's here from Acknowledge Farms, and we just wanted to thank you for taking the time, especially 3 weeks before harvest, to join us on the Move the Stairs podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Well, she was great, wasn't she? I mean, oh my gosh, I just felt like that whole interview just flew because she had so much information. You know, I really liked, she used the words not only regenerative, but intentional. That everything, you just get that from her, that everything she does is intentional. And when you can build trust, when you can get that across, that what you're doing, you're taking your time with, you're making sure that you're doing it the best way possible, I think that really helps build that customer loyalty.
Absolutely. Yeah, she kept talking about telling the customers her story, how they take steps to make that product the best. Now, when you're in the business, you may think, well, that's kind of inside baseball. That's not very interesting. But the consumer picks up on that, and that builds that trust with them and builds that loyalty. And then when talking about insider media relations, she used the word advocacy, also education, which is very important. We were talking, as a reporter, you're looking for those people that are on top of these subjects. But really, sometimes you're educating some of those reporters, and you're advocating for the entire industry when you're telling that story.
And lastly, Stefanie, without hesitation, said, I would really like to see the THC level be raised from up to 1%, which would be, dramatically helpful for farmers who are farming hemp with the new farm bill. But, as we know, there's a lot of red tape that happens in Congress. And when you're, staring down the barrel of a looming shutdown, things are not looking too great. And we know there's going to be political back and forth for both sides. So, Stefanie, what stuck out to me is, hey, we're in the same spot that we always have been. We're waiting on FDA. We're waiting on Congress. We know that these things can take a long time, but we're also used to it. So we're hanging in there.
Yeah. It's interesting. We wish Congress and the FDA did something yesterday, right? Sure. But she was talking about being a little patient because we know this is not a fast process. So right. Good advice there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Stefanie Reiser, for joining us on the Move the Stairs podcast. And thank you for listening. We hope you'll join us again soon.